Okay, let's see how to do the cutoff filter effect. You can ignore these tracks because I've just put them up here to borrow Midi or to use the samples from here. I'll add a new vital track. Go to add tracks, instrument, and then I go to my synths, vital. I hit create. I'll click on this icon here and I'll select a preset. I'll just borrow this MIDI now. I'll left click hold, drag it down and hold control on my keyboard and then leave my left click. So it makes a copy of it. I'll just align it with the bar. Solo this track. The first method I'll show you is with the default EQ that you get with Cakewalk. So for that, I'll hit D on my keyboard. It opens up my console view, or you can right click on the track, go to view and then open your console view. You can also use the shortcut Alt+2. I hit Shift D to full screen. This is my vital track. I'll just show you how to open this up. In case you don't see your track over here, it might be hidden behind these buses that come over the tracks. So then you just click on this edge here and drag it out. At the top here, you'll see something called a Pro channel. Left click on this and then you will see your EQ and other plugins that you get with Cakewalk. To open up the EQ, I'll just click on this arrow over here. By default, you will see your view as something like this. At the bottom here, you will see a button called LP that stands for low pass. So I'll click on this. You can adjust the slope by using this dial here. Now what I'll do is I'll just go back to the track. I'll press D on my keyboard after I close the EQ. I'll make sure the playhead is aligned here just before the chord start. I'll press D again on my keyboard. Open up my EQ. So now what we are going to do is we are going to automate this low pass. For that, I'm going to enable this right button here. Then it creates these red marks around all these dials. So whatever is marked in red can be automated. So now what we have to automate is this frequency knob over here. Now that right is enabled, I can either hit spacebar on my keyboard to play, or I can use this button here at the top to play. So I'll play and then I move the frequency knob. And then you just press spacebar again to stop it. I will disable right. I can now close the EQ and I'll press D on my keyboard to go back to my chords. And now you will see that there has been an automation line that has been created. I hit this button here that says automation lanes. And now I can just open this up and adjust these nodes to control the automation the way I want it. I can even delete the extra nodes by right clicking, dragging and selecting these nodes and then hitting delete. Bring this up and I'll right click on the curve and select linear. Now when I hit play, the chords will slowly open up. That is if I hit Shift+D, and if I open the EQ over here, and you'll see that as the playhead passes over the automation lane, the cutoff filter will get controlled according to how you draw this lane. I'll just bring this up here and then I'll bring this up to 11,000 Hz. Now I'll open up the EQ and I'll hit play. That is how you do the cutoff filter effect. Now the second method to do the cutoff filter effect is by using a third-party plugin. I'll use a free EQ plugin to show you how it's done, and I'll link that plugin in the description so that you can download it and use it. You can turn this EQ off now and I'll close it here. You can even close the Pro channel. I'll hit Shift D to full screen and then press D again. I'll right click on this and delete the envelope. Now on the effects section here, I'll just click on this plus symbol, insert audio effects, and I'll go to my EQ and select DDR Nova. Now it's the same process that you did with the stock EQ. I'll enable write. I'll change this to out so that you can see the frequencies. At the bottom left here, you'll see the low pass button. I'll just enable this. Now what I'll do is I hit spacebar on my keyboard. And you'll see that the automation has not been created. This sometimes can be a problem. I'll show you how to go about it. So what I do is I'll click on this automation lanes button. I click on this drop down here and I'll go to TDR Nova and I'll select choose parameter. Now I know I'm searching for the frequency parameter because I want to adjust this frequency that is here. So I'll just type in frequency and I will see that I have an option for LP frequency, that is the low pass frequency. I'll select this and I'll hit OK. So now it has created a lane for me which is of the low pass frequency. I left click here to create a node and you'll be able to see the live change happening in the plugin. So using this plugin I can see where I want my automation to be. Now I just hit play. Just make sure that you disable automation right over here once you are done creating the automation lane. Next is pitch bend. I'll use this lead over here that I had. This is how it sounds like. To create the pitch bend effect, I'll use a third-party plugin and I'll link this one too in the description. On FX, go to the plus symbol, insert audio effects. I'll go to uncategorized and I'll go to Gradient 2. You have to do the same thing that we did for the cutoff filter. Enable write for this track. Now you press spacebar on your keyboard and make sure you move this pitch shift wheel. Minimize this. I'll drop this down, drag this open, and I will adjust these nodes where I want the pitch bend to happen. I'll delete the extra nodes. I'll left click to create a node, left click to create another node, and then pitch this down. So now if I press play, and then I can left click here, and then create a pitch bend over here. Another small detail that you have to remember is whenever you see this dotted line over here, that means there is no effect of the automation lane on this particular track or on this particular VST instrument. So only if there is a solid line, that is when the VST instrument is going to get affected by the automation lane. So I hit play now. That is how you do the pitch bend. Again, remember to turn off your automation right. Next is converting Midi to audio. There is a freeze button on a Midi track. If you click on this button, it converts the Midi into audio. What I usually do is I make a copy of this audio so that I have my Midi intact. I right click on a track and I select insert audio track. Now I left click on this track, hold it and hold Control on my keyboard and drag this down, and I leave the left click. Then I unfreeze the original track so that I have my synth. I'll just mute this. Now I can do all the editing that I need on this audio track. I'll press play. You can hold Alt on your keyboard, you can left click, chop the audio up, and then you can add individual effects on these audio parts. Next is reversing audio. You will see that this kick here, I'll solo this. I've made a reverse kick so that at the start it creates this effect. So to reverse an audio, you left click on the sample. At the top left here you will see an option called process. Then go to apply effect and reverse, and then you can just adjust it wherever you want. Just adjust it about here. Okay, now we'll see fade in and out. If you have two audio clips like this, and if there is a tail that is sharp like this, so there's an abrupt end over here and you don't want that abrupt end, so you go to the top of the clip and you will see this triangular symbol. You just drag it in. The more you drag in, the more smoother the end will be. This is how it sounds without. I'll just solo this. So you hear that click at the end. So I'll just bring this in and I'll bring this one in. And now if I press play, I brought these two in, and now I'll bring the start in too. Now if I press play, so you won't hear the clicks on them. For the visual looks of the audio, sometimes when you record your audio it will be something like this, and you will not be able to see the peaks and valleys in your audio. So you just left click on this and drag this up according to your needs. To adjust the individual volumes on a sample which is on the same track, what you do is you hold Control on your keyboard, and whichever sample you want, you left click on it and drag down. You will see this red line appear. This will reduce the volume of this particular sample on the same track. Now if I press play, it has reduced the volume of this particular sample here. So hit Control, left click and adjust. Creating a volume automation is really simple. Any MIDI track that you have, you go to the automation lanes, and by default it will open up the volume automation. You can change this to panning or all the other ones that you have available with you. You can even add your third-party VST plugins over here, just like I did for the cutoff filter and the pitch bend, and you can automate them. For the volume automation, it's straightforward. Left click to create a node, and then you move the node around by left click and holding. You can even choose from the curves that you have available. A fast curve, you have a slow curve, and your linear curve. A jump is basically it will jump from this point to the high point. To delete the automation, you'll have to right click and then delete the envelope. If you press this button again, it will just be hidden in the background of this track. So always remember to right click and delete if you don't need it. To change the tempo of an audio sample or to stretch it, you hold shift plus control and you hover over the edge of the clip. You'll see the cursor change. Now use your left click and drag this out to stretch it out. Stretching it out makes the tempo slower, and bringing it in makes the tempo faster. This is useful when you bring in your loops, and you will see that they have their BPM mentioned over here. So if it is not fitting, you can stretch it out or in to adjust it to the BPM of your project. I'll show you another way of adjusting the BPM of your sample to the project you're using. I'll drag in this sample here. This is at 138 BPM. And my project is set to 126. So what I have to do is I have to change this to 126 now. I left click on this. On your left side here, if you don't see this pane, press I on your keyboard. This is the inspector pane. Third from the right, you will see this option called show hide clip properties. Click on this and go down to groove clip. You'll see an option called stretch to tempo. Check this. You will see the original tempo is 126. This is what we need to change. I left click and I change it to 138. So now the sample that we have selected has been changed to 126 BPM. I'll turn the metronome on. I'll just align this to the start of this bar. I'll hit play. So now this clip is in line with the tempo. This is how the original sounds like in line with the metronome. Let's look at sidechaining now. You have two methods in this. One is you can use one of these plugins, like I'm using this one over here. This is with the sidechain turned on, and this is with the sidechain turned off. I'll show you another plugin that gives the same effect. I'll just load it on this track here. Go to effects, insert audio effects, and it is called simple side. Here you just right click to make a node, and then you drag the curve how you want it to be. This is without the sidechain, and this is with. This sidechaining is done so that the kick can punch through the mix. Otherwise they both will be fighting for the space in the mix. I'll just play it with the kick. This is without the sidechain. And this is with the sidechain. So the kick becomes more present. For the second method of sidechaining, we can use a compressor for the sidechaining effect. I'll press D on my keyboard to open the console view. You can even right click on the track and go to view and click on console view. Shift D to full screen. Now I know that my synth track is on track number 9. I'll right click on the effects section, insert audio effects. I'll go to dynamics and I'll select co-compressor. There used to be a plugin called Sonatus compressor. I think they have taken it out now. So this is the new compressor over here. I'll use core compressor. I'll set the knee to about 16. The release I'll reduce it down to, can even double click and then type in a number. Set it to 150. Attack, I'll just leave it on that. I'll get the threshold over here. The threshold is what I will be using to control the amount of sidechain I need. I'll keep the ratio as high as I can. 30.1:1. Now I'll just check which track my kick is on. My kick is on the 5th track. I'll go back to the console view. On my 5th track, I'll go to sends. Click on this plus symbol here, or you can even right click on the empty space there. And I will select this option here, co-compressor input. It goes to vital 3, so I'll select this. Now I'll just open the plugin. I'll just make sure that my kick is also playing. I'll solo my kick, because if my kick doesn't come in, it will not send a signal to the compressor. So now I've soloed the kick and I have soloed the synth. Now I'll press play. I'm controlling the sidechain using the threshold of the compressor. So this is the second method. Next we are going to look at bus routing. Suppose I have these tracks over here. These are my percussion tracks and I want to put an effect such that it is applied to all of these 4 tracks. So instead of going to effects and adding the effects, like say the compressor, the core compressor, I will have to add it on each and every track and then change the parameter on each and every track. So instead of putting the effect on each and every track, I can route these 4 tracks to a single bus or a single track, and I can use the effect on that one track, so that the signal coming out of these 4 tracks goes through that bus and it applies that particular effect to all these 4 tracks. So let's see how that is done. I know that the 4 tracks that I'm going to link are my track number 5 to track number 8. So I'll press D on my keyboard, and on my track number 5 I will see that my output is been set to master. So is for every other track of mine. I come to the right side over here. You can already see that I have these tracks colored here. These are the buses which I have made. This bus is for the lead, chords, drums and bass. So I'll make a new bus over here. I'll right click in the open space, insert stereo bus, and I click on this and I have a new bus. I can rename it. Let's call it percussion or perks. Just in case you don't see your buses here, it might be hidden on the right side. So you just need to hover your mouse over this line here, left click and drag it out. Now what I have to do is link these 4 tracks to this bus called perks. I will go to my output which says master, click on the drop down and I will select my bus called perks. I can do this on each and every track, but if you have too many tracks, what you can do is you can just left click drag and highlight these tracks. Then go to any one of the outputs. I'll go to this track. Then there's an option called selected track outputs. I select that and I set the audio output as the perks bus and I hit OK. All these 4 tracks have changed the output to perks. Now if I add an effect over here, let's say I add an EQ, I'll add TDR Nova, and just so you can tell the difference, I'll do a high pass. I'll set this to out. I'll just solo these 4 percussions. Now I'll press play. So as you can hear, all the 4 percussion tracks have been linked to this bus. You can add any effect that you want on this bus and you'll have greater control on these tracks that you add to the bus. Now that we have created a bus, let's see how to create an automation for the same bus. For that, I'll come back to my track view. I press D on my keyboard. Then I come to the bottom here and I hover my mouse over this line. This is the bus pin. I left click and drag this up. Now if I scroll down, I can see my bus called perks here. I'll just drag this open. I still have that EQ plugin that I had put on the bus. So now what I want to do is I want to automate this out gain over here. So I'll enable right on this bus, or I can also do it from here by clicking this button here on the bus. Now all I need to do is press play and move this out gain knob. So now I'll press play. I'll press the spacebar on my keyboard. And then I press spacebar again to stop. I'll just right click, drag and delete this extra node. Now I can just move this node around and control the automation. Press play now. This is how the automation works for the bus. All these 4 tracks are being controlled by this automation lane here. And don't forget to turn your automation right off. And then you can continue on with your work. Next, let's look at the MIDI velocities. I have this strings track over here. I'll right click on the track, go to view and click on piano roll view. I'll hit shift plus D to full screen. At the bottom here you will see this line. I'll hover my mouse over this line, left click and drag this out. Each of these lines represent each of these notes in the MIDI. So if I change the line over here, it will do that particular change in the MIDI. Now this is set to velocity. I'll go to this small plus symbol over here and I'll change the control type from modulation to volume and I click OK. Now I can just left click drag. This is like a velocity control or the volume control for each of these notes. So the volume will be highest over here and then it will gradually decrease. So if I press play now, so that is how the velocity in MIDI works. The parameters that you get here are the parameters which are available for that particular plugin. These are all the options that I can change for these notes here. This particular plugin is Labs. This is also a free plugin, and I'll link this one too in the description. To remove this velocity change that I've done, I can just go here and click on this minus symbol here, and it will remove it out. Next, let's look at ghost nodes. At the top right here, I will see this arrow called expand. I'll click on this. I'll just drag this out. Now I'm on my strings track, and say that I want to write a melody in the strings using my chords which are in my vital track. And I can see this pencil symbol with my track number. I will click on the chords track number. Now I'm able to see my chords of my vital track. Next, I will click the name of the strings track. That is the track that I want to edit my melody in. I can see my chords here, and I can use them as support to write melody in my strings track. If you are not able to see these chords as ghost notes here, you might have your auto lock disabled. You just left click on this and enable your auto lock. In case if your auto lock is off, what will happen is if you press alt and left click, it will just do changes to the chords in the vital track which you don't want. I'll just hit Ctrl Z to bring it back. So enable auto lock, and then you can work on your melodies. And that is it for this video. If you have any other questions, you can always ask in the comments. I will try my best to answer you. Thank you for watching the video. See you in the next one.